An Ottawa man has been fighting the government for more than 2 years to stay in Canada, but Deepan Ottawa never considered himself an immigrant until he was imprisoned in 2010 on drug and weapon convictions. He thought he was Canadian. Since then, the government has been trying to deport him to his parents' native country, India. At a demonstration on Friday, Deepan's supporters hit the streets demanding that the government restore his citizenship. Fiona Buchanan has the story.
Justice for Deepan?
Buses roll up on Slater Street in downtown Ottawa, and a young woman offers flyers to passengers as they exit onto the platform. She is joined by a handful of other protesters outside Canada Building, home to the Immigration and Refugee Board. A man on a loudspeaker ensures passers-by hear the message.
Deepan's rights are under attack. What do? Rise up and fight back. Free Deepan, deport Alexander. Free Deepan and deport Harper.
The protesters want the government to intervene in a deportation order that could send 24-year-old Deepan Ottawa to India. The problem is, Deepan has never lived there. Zoe Maggio, one of Deepan's supporters, explains the situation to people passing by the demonstration.
Deepan Ottawa was born in Ottawa and has lived his entire life in Canada. He was on his mother's Canadian passport as a child and had his own passport until May of 2010 when, following a criminal conviction, the government suddenly informed him that they did not consider him a Canadian citizen.
Deepan's parents are both immigrants. They first came to Canada to work for the Indian High Commissioner in 1985. The government claims when Deepan was born 4 years later, his parents were still working for the Indian High Commission. This would mean they had diplomatic status, and although Deepan was born on Canadian soil, he would not be a citizen. But Deepan says that's simply not true.
They're trying to deport me to my parents' homeland based on the fact that they believe that my parents had diplomatic status when I was born. But on the contrary, we have multiple evidence showing that my parents did not have diplomatic status. You have a recognized doctor, you have the former High Commission letter clearly stating that at the time of my birth, my parents did not work for the High Commission. And based on that fact, they're trying to deport me, saying that I am a child that's born with parents that had diplomatic status.
Deepan's supporters have been writing to Chris Alexander, the Minister of Immigration and Citizenship. They want Alexander to intervene in Deepan's case because of the exceptional circumstances. Kevin Menard is a special assistant to Chris Alexander. He said they do not take interviews about individual cases. In an email to Midweek, he wrote, quote, "This convicted criminal has never been a Canadian citizen. He should not have chosen a life of crime if he did not want to be deported from Canada." Unquote. But Deepan's lawyer, Peter Stida, said the situation is not so black and white.
Deepan was left to his own devices at age 13, surviving on the streets all by himself. Inevitably, he's going to fall prey to criminal elements as a vulnerable youth. So, are we going to brand him with a mark of Abel on his forehead for the rest of his life as a result of something that was entirely beyond his control? And I'm talking about the home environment that led him to run away.
Deepan recently learned the government held important information from him about his case. He had to file an access to information request to learn that the Indian government advised Canada he is not an Indian citizen. Stida says Deepan is now stateless as a result. This means he cannot get health care, he cannot vote, and he must check into border services once a month for monitoring purposes.
It's a very, very strange situation. I've never seen anything like it before. But you'd think that the government would remedy the situation by granting Deepan citizenship.
With the government unwilling to budge, the next step for Deepan is to ask the federal court to declare him a citizen of Canada. In the meantime, Deepan remains unsure of his fate. For Midweek, I'm Fiona Buchanan.